Talk about a difference in perspective. I didn't like FF14 back in 2009, but now, upon replaying it, I had a completely different experience. 13 really is a victim of its own circumstances.
The blame is mine. I couldn't save her.
Coming out of the years of delay and having a pretty linear story progression and level design, in a time when the first 4 big open worlds we now have seen so many of in 2018 was at the all-time high. Square Enix themselves followed that trend in the former Versus 13, now better known as Final Fantasy 15. The boys are back.
It. What's up, Iggy? I've come up with a new recipe. I could taste test for you.
The boys are back! Hey, the boys are back! The boys are back, gonna do it again, gonna wake up the neighbor.
Don't get me wrong, I'm the first to admit that this game has some pretty bad flaws, but as often is the case, this doesn't mean that the 13th entry is a completely bad game. Normally I cover the whole story while talking about the different aspects of a game. However, with a Final Fantasy game, that format would top the hour mark rather quickly, so let's try something else. I'm going to take the complaints about the game I hear with the most frequency and try to argue against them. Every JRPG has some winners and some characters that will never see the front lines after their introductions. But for many, the whole playable cast of this game is a collection of forgettable nobodies that are best not talked about, while certainly never reaching the upper echelons of your Claudes, Squalls and Noctusi. I think the game brings some unique characters to the FF universe, for the most part anyway.
Timing.
Destiny is destiny.
Oh. What does that mean? Does Square Enix know what that means? Oh, it's good.
The de facto cover girl and Nomura dreamwife of the game. Strong, fast, dependable, and a woman of few words. Even with her stylish design and her sister Sarah to save, she doesn't fall into the typical protag role, at least in this game. After the first hours, the story is as much about everybody else. People are forced to label her as a female Squall, must be the Gunblade, or Claude, but really, there are some things they definitely have in common, but she lacks the edge these two have in their games.
Can't believe we made it.
That'll slow down pursuit.
But aren't there troops on this side? We can't relax just yet.
Right. We press on. I'll take point. You watch our backs.
The teacher role she takes on during her chapter with Hope is pretty good in that lone wolf and cub kinda way. Kind of wish they would have done more with it, but her motivation of getting her sister back stays pretty clear the whole way through. Her character arc of trusting other people and working together makes sense and paints a pretty clear picture how the adventure changes her.
Mom?
Not by a long shot.
Nothing to worry about!
Ah yes, the self-proclaimed hero, and probably the second most disliked character. Honestly, I never fully understood that. I mean yes, he is a huge idiot, but so are many beloved characters in games. The story arc, with him wanting to be the hero, despite not being one and not understanding what a hero is, feels like something new, something with actual potential.
You think it's stupid to fight?
It is if you get killed.
Well, another character, and the events of the fun stretch of the game kind of ruined that though. His love for Sarah won't win any Oscars, no matter how many times they play that kitschy love song, but, well, it's fine.
I came through it, make 'em heartbreaking, feel running through my bones. Got my clothes, but I can't really feel them all. Oh no, whatever I do.
A lot of things can be excused. Shooting kids ain't one.
Kindness like his, you don't forget.
I like this guy. I mean, yeah, he is overly goofy and maybe not be the kind of guy you expect as a JRPG party member, but he really brings a nice balance to the young party, especially with the young Vanille. He has some really good scenes.
Still a kid.
And portrays his despair and hopelessness the best of all the cast members. But whatever, hit that chocobo!
So you think you can ride this chocobo? Got chocobos, you better put 'em on the chocobo. Settle up if you think you can ride in this rodeo. Oh, you know, I don't know to the doors.
Okay, back to exploring. We could just run away.
Most people see her as the stereotypical cheerful girl, a sign that they really didn't give the game a chance. Her demeanor is a charade for a character with a lot of fear, guilt and uncertainty. She plays the fool for others, always trying to cheer them up. She also has some of the best written confrontation scenes with the other cast members.
I might as well have tried to stop the rain. I fought the tears, but they still fell.
You're getting soaked.
I'll be fine. It's only water.
Okay, every critique, every hateful comment, it is all true. To this day, I hate Hope and everything he stands for. If you thought Van in FF12 was annoying, get ready for something even worse. Hope really brings nothing to the table. He looks lame, sounds lame, and has a lame weapon. In fact, he even takes whatever is on the table of 13 away. His stupid, pointless and empty revenge on Snow, that even he admits makes no sense, actively takes away from Snow's hero subplot, making him act like the biggest buffoon ever. He even manages to ruin the only good Cup and Wolf dynamic with Lightning, with the stupid pocket knife of his, cause using his boomerang to kill Snow would be too funny, I guess? Hope, I hate you, and I'll never use you when the game doesn't force me to. Even though you're one of the best characters to use in battle.
The twin sisters. I gotta hand it to you for taking them down, but don't gloat just yet. Might come a time you wish you'd let them end it, and made things easy. Shut up and come quiet.
What is the 5 fingers say to the face? What? Slap!
From the worst to the best, Fang is the best character in the game. She has a good major design, is funny and a badass in fights. Honestly, she would have worked in any FF game, and to some extent is a better version of flagship girl Lightning. Sadly, she gets introduced pretty late into the story, so her own plot is cut short, and she kinda gets reduced to Vanille's badass big sister. I guess we stop with this, as fighting is what you will do most of the time. The big thing people get hung up about is the auto battle function of the game, like it took them some insane skill to select fire 2 8 times during a boss fight in the old games. But really, if you come up and tell me FF14 plays itself after the first couple enemies, then you either didn't play very far or overlevel yourself at every possible moment. Auto battle is not the problem. The challenge of the combat lies especially in the late game in switching the so-called paradigments to match the flow of the battle. Paradigments basically are roles assigned to the party members, like damage dealer, tank, healer, and buffing/debuffing. The other important part of combat is building up this trigger bar, with continued attacks to the enemy, as the enemy enters a stun state upon reaching a threshold, enabling you to do big damage numbers. In fact, it is almost required to best some of the stronger fiends, and almost a race to get to, before the enemy finishes your party. Both mechanics bring their own share of problems. At first, each playable character has their own set of 3 paradigments, making them at least somewhat unique, even if you probably go for the strongest attackers and a healer. Later on, however, each character gets access to all of them. Mind, there's one character that is the best for each paradigm, but with some characters doing more damage and having better abilities in important roles, you find the 3 characters you want to use pretty quickly. Well, not if you like me refuse to use Hope, who is really strong, but that is a different point. I really think most of these problems could have been avoided with a simple system to switch out party members mid-fight, like all the titles in the series had. I guess for some reason they didn't incorporate it. The game would have greatly benefited from more customization in the auto attacks performed. Kind of like the gambit system in FF12. You can choose skills yourself, but there's always no reason to. Maybe if you need a little more coordinated healing, but for the most part auto is fine. Also, I wish there'd be more special attacks you could do, like limit breaks or Chrono Trigger style team-up attacks. The Eidolons you can summon are pretty cool and somewhat useful in normal fights, but you can't control them in the normal mode, and then you just mash X till it does its special attack in the transformed form. Okay, here we go. The story itself is about the well-known concept of defying one's destiny and choosing for yourself, a mainstay idea in JRPGs. It dabbles in themes such as prejudging the unknown, social outcasting, violence for a greater good, family values, heroism, and self-sacrifice, among other stuff.
You sure?
Yeah. Moms are tough.
The writing itself has many problems, some of you almost expect from the genre. Strange designs, MacGuffins, and confusing character motivation. One thing I never understood, however, is people complaining about it being too complicated. People keep saying that the story is unclear and convoluted. It's needlessly abstract, but really not that hard to understand. Terms like Fal'Cie, L'Cie, Pulse, Cocoon, and Thief are hated to no end because people couldn't remember what 5 words meant, I guess, and didn't want to use the wiki in the game. While it surely isn't the most direct tale, not even told in chronological order at some points, FF14 alone is by no means an unapproachable epos or something like that. A big problem the game has is its structure, being divided into basically 3 parts. The beginning, which is in a multiple hour-long tutorial, teaching you about mechanics until way past the point it should have explained everything. It doesn't help that the story separates the characters constantly. In groups of 2, especially combat and the options thereof slow down a lot, making every fight drag on and lessen the actual experience. Good for character interaction, but bad for the gameplay. Surprisingly, I have no problems with the level structure itself, which is, in the beginning and final, super linear. Maybe it's the oversaturation of open worlds, which next to every game in 2018 has, but I prefer going through linear but visually impressive areas than searching waypoints in a big generated map. Like I said, even Square Enix themselves opted out for open world in 15, and in my opinion, with mediocre success. After leaving Planet Tutorial, or Cocoon as it is known in the game, behind, the cast is free to explore the open, vast, and side content filled areas of Krampus. I have to admit that the vibrant plant life and huge landscapes with interacting wild animals is an awesome contrast to the claustrophobic cold corridors with robots and soldiers of the first hours. Sadly, all of this is more like a taste of freedom, cause in the end you're still just running from A to B to kill something. That leaves us with the final of the 13th entry that once again puts your party on a linear path to the last couple boss fights. All of this really puts the greatest flaws of the game on display, like most topics the game wants to touch on, but not explored as much as you'd like. This sometimes leads to an emotional disconnection between player and characters. There are some strange scenes for sure, but even more of them had next to no impact on me. One thing this tale desperately needed was a Sephiroth, Kefka, or even Kucha for that matter. A central problem is the missing supervillain. Strangely enough, Final Fantasy had no problem with this until 12? All you're given are characterless god monster machines like Barthandalos and underdeveloped military humans I can't even remember the names of. Truth be told, FF14 is an ambitious project with many things that really hold it back and are rightfully the reason it doesn't really come up on people's favorite Final Fantasy game rankings. I just want to end this video on something positive. So just let me say that this PS3 game is absolutely beautiful, and I was really impressed how well it held up. Yeah, there are some blurry textures and frame drops, but the overall presentation, and especially the cutscenes where everybody looks way more Asian than in the game itself, really shows where Square Enix spent all the money and time on the assets. One thing that absolutely should be on people's top 10s should be the soundtrack composed by Masashi Hamauzu. You've been listening to the music throughout this video. From the normal battle theme to just location, the tracks do a fantastic job keeping you hooked and humming along to them. They are almost too vibrant and clear for something that didn't realize its full potential.